This is Dropping Hints.
I'm Alex.
I'm Silas.
In this podcast, you'll catch a glimpse of our everyday conversations. Reality can be whatever I want. So, do you know...
Oh boy.
Yes. I have a question.
You said you had a way to start it, and I didn't know this.
I have a question for you. I'm taking over this podcast now. I have a question. What is reality?
Whatever I want. Or, let me put it this way. It's a series of...
Give us a working definition.
A working definition of reality. Okay.
Do you need to look it up?
Reality is...
I have a dictionary.
R, H-I-J-K-L, M,
I also have
and
the
methane.
thesaurus.
N, narcolepsy.
Side note for you,
OPQ.
not related to today's topic.
Sassy.
Always keep a dictionary handy.
What am I looking for? Reality.
Always keep your brain handy too.
Rather... Wow. That's great. There's just all these words.
Yeah, so the pocket thesaurus doesn't have it.
Yeah, I don't... Yeah, this one doesn't have it either.
Really?
Doesn't have it either. They're made from the same company, you know? There it is. Found it.
I was like...
The state of being real. The state of being real.
That's...
Real, the definition of real is actual, true, or a second definition could be genuine.
Okay.
So the state of being true, the state of being real, the state of being actual.
Reality is a status.
Reality is a status.
You're going to keep that handy, I see. Reality, a status of being real. Okay.
A status.
So with
the status of being real.
With that definition in mind now, okay, I want to draw your attention to the phenomenon known as virtual reality. And specifically in this so-called virtual reality, okay. First of all, I want to just get your hot take on VR.
I thought maybe we could do
VR
some hot
is
takes.
short for virtual reality.
Virtual
case
reality.
You don't understand.
Not very rugged. Virtual reality.
What's your hot take on it?
I think it's amazing technology. I think it's very, the fact that we can do that.
You sound very political.
I'm just speaking my mind. It's amazing technology. I think it's wonderful technology. But
there it is. There's always a but with Silas.
Well, all I was going to say is but it doesn't really appeal to me very much. It doesn't really appeal to me too much. I've played a couple of those games like Beat Saber. Mm-hmm. I've played that one. That one's, it's kind of fun, but I do it once and then I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like I don't need this. I don't need this in my house. I don't need this consistently to be in my life. I just had it once. And I don't have any like super strict problems with it in general. I'm just like, yeah, it's a pretty cool, pretty neat technology that we've advanced to have that. I'm very indifferent towards VR.
You're indifferent towards a lot of things.
Things that don't matter? Yes. So what I'm saying is VR doesn't matter.
Wow.
As a blanket statement.
Okay. So
doesn't matter.
So what do you think there's in the context of the world that we live in today, where we do a lot of things online now, and they're not in person. Okay. Virtual reality. One can see the potential tool that virtual reality can be in a lot of different avenues for human interaction. Where are some places that you think VR does or does not belong as a conduit for human interaction?
Well, There's a very
How about a couple where you think it's appropriate to have it first, just to butter up the
okay.
proponents
Where
of
is
this.
VR good for human interaction? You say.
First of all, VR and its intended purpose can be for a lot of different things. You can
Because
play
it's
video
usually
games
for
with
games.
it.
That's like the main. That's like the main 90% of its use.
But when you
is for
play those games, can you play against other people?
yeah, but you don't see.
Can you
together.
play with people?
I'm sure you can.
I mean, it's gaming.
I don't know
doesn't
anything
have to
about.
be a solitary.
I don't know anything about people. But when you say interact with people, okay, like when you say virtual reality for interacting with people, my mind goes like I turn the dial to 11, and I'm like.
All right.
I'm going to like the absolute worst possible interpretation of that statement. If you know what I mean.
All right. Virtual reality doctor appointments.
Okay, that's better. That's fine. That's
what do you think?
Great.
What do you think about it?
Because that's like a Skype call, which I don't know why you wouldn't just do a
hey,
Zoom call
hey
at
doc,
that point.
I think my arm is broken. Can you take a look at it? And then your virtual reality avatar character.
Okay, well now you're talking about avatars. Are you talking about virtual reality as in like everything is an avatar, or virtual reality as in you put in like goggles and now it's like I'm actually like I'm seeing like a video stream of somewhere else. You know what I mean? And I can look around and it's like real around me, not like an animated cartoon stuff. That's what I was thinking. When you said human interaction, I was thinking like actual people.
But how, if you go to a doctor appointment that is virtual reality? First of all, I've never heard of those. It's just an example.
It was your idea.
Do you know of a way that you as the patient could show the doctor your potentially broken arm?
If it's a virtual reality thing, no. If it was just like a Zoom call, you would just hold it in front of the camera.
Okay.
Obviously, if you have a broken arm,
right.
You know your arm is broken. Not a good example.
Move
Obviously,
on to the
that's
next
okay.
One.
Are you going to give me the next one?
Well, I don't want to, but I guess I will.
What do you think? I don't know. You tell me.
All right. I don't have all the answers. I have a couple answers, but I don't have all the answers.
Let's hear them.
What do you think about
You're asking me another question.
Well, I guess I'm changing the topic now. What do you think about in any educational institution, schools or college?
This is where I think
vocational
virtual
training.
reality. This is where I think virtual reality has its practical real world uses beyond gaming. Okay, beyond playing games. That's its own separate thing. Beyond that, where I think it has its applications and its uses is in model simulations. In simulations or in modeling programs. So let's say you're a architect or a designer who's trying to design something, or a civil engineer who's trying to design something, and you want to get into a place where you're like, okay, like let me visualize, let me see what this would actually look like, what it would require. And if you had like designed a virtual reality thing to where you can edit and create these, as an architect, let's say, these architectural things, or as a civil engineer, you can create these like bridges or whatever, but you're seeing like all of like the info, like the equations and all of like the tension and the stress on each part of the bridge. There's little widgets that like, you can like point at that and you'll get the info about that point, what sheer strength of concrete that has to have, what compression ability it needs to have, what type of rebar you should use. You know what I'm saying?
That You're just throwing out all the construction terms like that
modeling simulations. I think about like simulations for like pilot simulations, whether they're military Air Force pilots or just like normal civilian pilots, simulations like that.
All right, so I want to shoot you down.
Well, I'm in a plane, so don't do that. Please.
I want to shoot down your point that you were talking about for the application to architecture and engineering, and specifically as VR, as you described it, in the way that you proposed it as a tool is not necessary as a designer, as
It's
an
not
actual
necessary for anything.
engineer. We already have tons of software and programs that can not only perform an analysis on a structure, but it can render an image in 3 dimensions to a very realistic, like it looks very realistic. It doesn't look like a cartoon. It looks like a real picture. And they also have a high degree of accuracy, and so we already have those things. Now, where it could be beneficial is we need to sell our services. We need to sell engineering and architectural services to our clients, and to help our clients understand what our vision is for whatever this project may be that they have hired us to do. Then I think VR might be a valuable tool in showing our clients, hey, why don't you do a walkthrough of what we can design and build for you, as a selling point of why we should design and why you should choose us and hire us to do this for you. So I think it's a good marketing tool. I don't think that it's a good technical design tool. I don't really see how it could be a window into the technical aspect of it. I see how it can be a window into the potential investors or buyers of our services, but I don't see how it could be beneficial to an engineer who is designing these things.
Because it's kind of childish and mindless.
Well, because we already have things that do what you proposed virtual reality would do, and better. We have things already in place.
Yeah, I don't...
One such thing is the human brain.
Like, yeah, I don't think virtual reality needs to exist. There's no... I don't think it needs to exist. Okay,
thank you for coming to our podcast today.
Like,
there.
I don't think there's any reason that it needs to exist. It's just like, if it exists, and if you're like bent upon using it because it's the progressive thing to do,
all right,
then
people are going to use it.
Then people are going to use it. And
right.
So it's like, how could you use it? Well, let me possibly think of, all the examples where you could use it.
Yeah. I do think that it could be beneficial in mainly in the marketing aspect of,
because it's like you get to see
everyday
it,
life.
And you see
because,
it, and you're like, wow.
You put something
it's like
together
I'm there.
And you show your client using virtual reality, and they get to see and walk through and experience in a very realistic way what they are going to buy or what they are going to hire you to do, or whatever the case may be. So I think it could be valuable there. I don't yet see how it could be valuable for a technical aspect like that. So do you have a question you'd like to ask me?
We were going to talk about church.
Do you have any question at all that you'd like to ask me? I have asked you 2 questions, and you seem to get annoyed at me for asking you questions. Otherwise, I'll just ask you the last question that I had, which was,
I didn't prepare questions. Is virtual salvation real salvation?
So the last question I have for you is, does virtual reality belong in a church setting? Can you attend church via... Should, or would, shall.
Those are, I have different answers for each one of those, just so we're clear. Would I? No.
Let me finish the question.
Would anyone? Yes.
Let me finish the question. Okay. Just so that our listeners can understand clearly what I mean. Should you attend church using virtual reality? Should you go to virtual reality church and participate in virtual reality church? That's the crux of the question at hand.
And the crux of my answer is no.
Okay. Now we know.
Oh, wait, hang on.
We know that
before you click away.
Please hit the dislike button at this time.
Please drop me a dislike, just in the chat, just for you. Before you click away.
Okay, so we both know that you can.
The crux of my
we both know that you
are
attend.
physically able to.
Well, it's virtual, so
I am physically able to click the button that puts me in the virtual world.
We have seen it. Our church, it has a virtual reality campus, they call it. We've seen it. pretty weird.
Yes.
But we'll talk about that later. But we've seen it done, so it is possible to do it. But should you do it? Is you say no?
I say the crux of my answer. That is cutting through all the exceptions. That's cutting through all the exceptions and all the other information that should be, in a full-length discussion about it. The end point that I would get to, the crux of it, as we say, is no.
Because
no.
there are better things, better ways of achieving.
By definition, the virtual reality, the virtual world.
Remember our working definition of reality.
In general, when you're in like virtual reality land. I sound like
it is a land.
When you're in virtual reality land, and I'm not talking about like, like I put on the headset and I see like a camera that's showing me the real world somewhere else. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like a digitally rendered.
That is a live stream.
That's a live stream
of a church service.
That's 360 enabled. That's just that's not what I would really call virtual reality. Mm-hmm. I mean, because that's still just like straight up.
Because you're watching.
It's just a live stream.
You're watching a church congregation service happen through a camera, and you can go into chat or whatever, and they say we like to participate in the chat. So go ahead.
And all of those things.
But the difference.
All of those things, I'm sure you can do in strict virtual reality, which those are all fine. Those aren't like my problem.
There's a difference when you cross the line of we are not using virtual reality technology to now we are using virtual reality technology. Talk about how that affects your answer.
Because now you are then in a place where in the virtual reality, now you are not who you really You're not necessarily who you really are. You can put on a persona. This is like I was telling you earlier with the furries. It always comes back to the furries. They put on their, as they call it. Okay, let me just pause here. I am very familiar with like internet culture. I said this to Alex just the other day. I'm very familiar with internet culture, Reddit, 4chan, memes, and furries are a big part of that. With you, take them or leave them. You got it. They're part of the internet. Okay,
so just to be clear, you've never been a furry. You don't support furry.
No, I don't. I never plan to be.
Encourage furry behavior.
I don't encourage, nor do I affirm anything that a furry believes, or is. But what I'm saying is, they put on their so-called fursonas, which is a play on the word which is a play on the word persona. They put on these fursonas. It's almost always sexual. Okay, just gotta put that out there.
Understood.
So it's known. They put on these personas, and it's like, that is not the same as virtual reality, but I'm saying it's almost analogous to a similar situation where somebody can go into virtual reality, put on a persona of, let's say I'm sitting here, I'm Silas, I'm me, I'm a 6-foot dude with a beard. I can put on the persona and I could be a 5'2", magical warlock lady with purple hair if I go and play some video game or something like that. I can do that. I can make my character like that if I wanted to. So there's in the world there's a lot of weird things. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the virtual reality can give you access to that is not inherently wrong. That's not inherently bad, but it opens a door. It at least shows a pathway that leads to somebody who is like, okay, let me go attend virtual church with my virtual persona, my Christian persona. Now let me go and attend virtual Jewish church. Let me go to temple, synagogue. Temple. Let me go to synagogue with my Jewish virtual reality persona. Now let me go to a mosque with my Muslim virtual. I'm saying it's not that anybody would reasonably do that. I'm just saying it's a technical possibility that we have to think about. That's like, okay, if now we're saying like you are a virtual reality, you're in virtual reality, and there's no connection to anything that's physical, that's real. Nobody knows what your face looks like. Nobody knows where you actually are, what you're actually doing, who you are. I would give you the same answer if you said, could you attend church strictly online, anonymously? I would say no, you can't. You can't attend church online anonymously.
You shouldn't.
You physically can. You are physically able to. There's nothing inherently wrong with just doing that. But if you're doing that to escape being around other people, or to escape, like correction and like being in like a community of other people, as we talked about today, being in a community of other people, that's like it's questionable. That's problematic. So not everybody that uses virtual reality church would do it in that way, but some people, just the same as online church, would. So I think it's an interesting.
So the motivation,
tool, but the motivation
for using virtual reality to go and participate in
or
church,
online church in general,
because some people might have a good motive for using it.
They may have a perfectly.
But
fine
now that you
motive
open the door, you allow people with motives which are not good, but
are hurtful to themselves.
But yes, hurtful to themselves and potentially other people if they form some sort of toxic relationship with somebody else virtually that they meet. It just opens the door for many more problems than it solves. It solves a problem of, we don't have this person who is physically not in the same city as our church, and we want to let them come to church, so we're going to do a virtual reality church. Now we've solved the problem of this person can't physically be at this church, but now they can virtually be at this church. That's now you solution. Now you have created a whole new set of problems in this person is not going to find meaningful community and relationships, which is a vital part of the Christian life outside of the worship of God. They're not going to find that through virtual reality, because people need a person, a real person sitting
like
across
the ultimate,
from them.
the ultimate, like I almost said consummation, but that's not really the right word. But in a way, the ultimate, like
the pinnacle,
like the pinnacle of like a relationship that started like a friendship. I'm saying any kind of communal relationship that started virtually. For them would be, we finally got to meet in person. That's what everybody would say.
We pen pals back in the day.
They'd be like,
we finally meet your pen
got to
pal.
meet in person. It's like, I mean, it's wonderful that there's people that you can meet online, and it's honestly analogous to a pen pal, except that it's so much easier, and maybe you have a lot more chance of running into like somebody who's really dangerous. But you then. That you're like, okay, like the pinnacle of it would be, we finally got to meet in person. So I think that if you're like just doing it as, I don't know if a supplemental is the right word, but almost as like something that's like, okay, like I have this, and like, yes, I have, I do meet people in the online chat at church. Just when I'm just on the webpage, just watching the stream, and I chat with the people online. Not that I do that, but whoever, like that's all fine and dandy, but it's like, have you ever like met them? Have you seen them? Have you ever spent time with them?
Yeah.
Do they know? Does anybody know you?
It's interesting because churches in America will promote and encourage people to get to know other people, to join community groups, small groups, whatever you want to call it. They'll encourage people to do that, and then on the other hand, though, they provide a way for them to disconnect
for you not to do that,
and not do that. And it's like,
and I think it's just
which way do you want it? Do you want me to find other people to meet up with and have a community with, or do you want me to isolate myself and put on a persona every time I go to church or a community group of not having to show my face, not having to use my real name, not having to interact with other people? If it gets uncomfortable, I can just sign off,
or just not. People wouldn't even know I was there in the first place.
Right. I can be whoever honestly, I want to be.
Depending on the church you go to, that might just be the case if you go in person anyways.
You lose authenticity. You lose
accountability.
Can
we think of any other A words?
I wasn't going for the A. I was just going for the things that you lose
Authenticity,
by using virtual
accountability.
reality as a form of church or community groups. You lose some authenticity, or you are vulnerable
You are
of
vulnerable
losing
to
losing
not that you strictly
authenticity.
always lose these things. That you are
Authenticity,
vulnerable to losing them.
accountability, that face-to-face connection that people can make. It's like a pseudo relationship. You know, you open up the door for it to be unhealthy. You open up the door for it to turn into something, quite frankly, that you hope that it never would. So I think virtual reality church should not be on the table. Just invite somebody to church. Go out, find someone personal.
They don't want to come, though.
Know their name and be like, would you, Silas, like to go to my church? If they say yes,
no,
then that's fine. If they say no, okay. I'm not going to force you.
That's a big harm. That's a big foul, as they say. I mean, no harm, no foul.
Right. And if that person says no,
you say, I'm not going to force
you. If you want to invite somebody else,
I'm going to say, here's the
invite
Bible,
somebody else.
I'm going to beat you with it.
But the people in the church should also be friendly and loving towards each other, and learn each other's names. And learn what makes that person them.
There are good things to come out of the virtual technology, but it is very dangerous. Can be very dangerous.
It can be.